Kitco News special coverage of Bitcoin 2022 is brought to you by Coin Payments, crypto payments made easy.
This is Kitco News coming to you from Bitcoin 2022, the biggest Bitcoin gathering. I'm Michelle Makori, joined by David Lin, and we are thrilled to be speaking with Alex Mashinsky, CEO of Celsius Network. Alex, we're so excited to have you that David was needing to cash in on the action and join this interview.
I couldn't let Michelle have all the fun.
Well, this is breaking news, having both of you doing this interview. So that is the news.
Quite an honor for you to join us both.
And it's because you have so many exciting announcements that you want to share that we're going to share the wealth. So let's start off with your top announcement, and that is Celsius Network now has 159,000 Bitcoin onto the platform.
Yeah, we just crossed 1.7 million users, and they hold over 159,000 Bitcoin, which is amazing. Makes us one of the top Bitcoin holders in the world. And this is a community of hodlers, right? So we are, they don't sell on bad news, they buy more when the markets go down. So it's amazing. We're really proud of all the stuff we've done for Bitcoin, and we're here at Bitcoin 2022 in Miami to celebrate that. So
what is the significance then of now under the Celsius Network having 159,000 Bitcoins, and how does it compare with some of the other players out there?
So that's more than MicroStrategy, it's more than most people out there, right? So I would say probably we're top 10 holders of Bitcoin in the world. And the even bigger news is that Celsius have paid these holders 6,092 Bitcoins as interest, as yield, over the last 4 years since we launched the service in July of 2018. So these people are hodlers and they get paid for hodling. And obviously we do good and then we all do well together.
All right, before we get into the second announcement, with so many Bitcoin that are being held for dear life, what does that mean for the liquidity in the market? Because we're seeing less and less paper hands, if you will, more and more diamond hands as the Bitcoin bullishness continues. What does that mean for the liquidity if we have more and more people just holding on?
Yeah, so if you look at Glassnode or other sources, you will see a continuous decrease in the number of coins that are on exchanges. It doesn't matter if it's Binance or Coinbase or any other exchange, they have less and less coins because people may buy the coins on those exchanges, but then they move them to companies like Celsius because they want to earn yield on them, right? So there's less liquidity, more hodling, and basically when these exchanges or institutions need liquidity, they pay for the coins. They used to get these liquidity for free, now they have to pay for it. That's why we can earn so much in Bitcoin and pay most of it back to our community.
I just want to go back to the 159,000 Bitcoins. Surely you can comment on the demographic changes that have been happening on Celsius Network. As you've grown your user base, where does that come from geographically and age-wise?
Yeah, great question. So when we launched in 2018, the age group of 18 to 34 was less than 25% of our users. Now it's over 50% of our users, right? So basically more younger people own more Bitcoin, and geographically we were mostly international, so I would say 70% international. Now we're over 50% in the United States. So the US consumer has definitely added many more assets, especially Bitcoin, to their holdings.
What is that international breakdown?
So a lot in Europe. We're very heavy in Europe. I would say out of that non-US cohort, maybe another 40% or so is in Europe, and then Australia and Canada and other countries that are very Bitcoin friendly. We're not as heavy in South America and Africa, but definitely Europe and some of these other countries.
All right, big announcement number 2, and that is that you are now offering wrapped Bitcoin.
Yes.
Explain what that means and why it's important.
Yeah, so many of us have seen hacks and scams and problems with bridges, right? Bridges that connect different blockchains. For example, we saw Solana hack, which was about 300 million, Axie Infinity, over $600 million lost, and many, many others. So in total, just this year, the hacks are over $2 billion. People lost $2 billion because these bridges were not safe. So for the last year, Celsius has been working on native minting. Native means that we can lock a Bitcoin on the Bitcoin network and issue a token or a new coin on a different network. So there's no bridge, there's no smart contract to hack, much, much safer. So the analogy is that if a bridge between, for example, Solana and Bitcoin represents cars going over and half of the cars fall into the river, how many people are going to trust driving on that bridge, right? So what we're seeing is people using DeFi and CeFi much less because they don't trust the infrastructure. Here, and Come Celsius creates a safe bridge, a safe alternative to move assets between blockchains. So we support Dogecoin, we support Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, and now obviously again, Wrap Bitcoin. So now all these assets can interchange, can move between seamlessly between chains without the risk of hackers stealing the assets.
Okay, hackers aside, I know Wrapped ETH is used for the NFT market considerably. What does Wrapped Bitcoin imply in terms of Bitcoin's utility in the NFT market? Are you saying that we could start seeing Bitcoin as a coin or a token that could be used to purchase and sell NFTs?
Right, so when you wrap Bitcoin, you're actually moving the value of Bitcoin to be used on other chains. So for example, we put Bitcoin on Polygon. So now you can basically do both NFTs and DeFi with this asset. So the asset we issue, the wrapped Bitcoin, can be used as collateral, can be used for loans, can be used for yield, where before it was not accessible on Polygon.
That's groundbreaking because Bitcoin is not commonly used.
It's not compatible with any of these markets.
In OpenSea, Raribles. I know there's smaller platforms that use their own tokens, but Bitcoin. So we're going to see more NFT adoption for Bitcoin. So,
and we're here at the Bitcoin 22 conference, extending the utility of Bitcoin creates more use cases. More use cases bring more users create more demand, and more demand means higher prices, right? The supply is fixed. 19 million Bitcoin were already minted.
What Michelle's going to ask you next, I can read her mind. I'll let her ask.
I don't think you do, but I will tell you that David has a vested interest in the NFT market and accepting Bitcoin or Ethereum.
That's not what I meant.
He owns apes or
burgeoning NFT artist.
Oh, very good.
So there you go. There's an announcement coming out of Kitco News, potentially.
Well, let's just keep that under wraps for now. Well, more details to come as it comes out.
He's issuing 10,000 NFTs.
I am not, but Michelle Makori might have something to play in that role as well.
Perhaps there's a David Lin, Michelle Makori NFT about to be launched. We'll see. You heard it first.
It's a collab, like finally.
A collab with Celsius.
I thought you meant to ask him about the price of Bitcoin because you said Bitcoin's going to go up, right?
Yes.
He always says Bitcoin's going to go up in the long term.
Not true.
In the long term.
I'll pass it back to Michelle.
So why don't you did call the bottom here on Kitco News.
February 22nd, yes.
What are you seeing as the biggest factors moving the price of Bitcoin at the moment?
We have several factors. So obviously, again, Luna deciding to buy a lot of Bitcoin, that's helpful. A lot of people are trying to front run those acquisitions. They're buying up to 125 million Bitcoin every day, dollars worth of Bitcoin every day. So a lot of people are saying, hey, if they're going to continue buying, let me buy it ahead of them.
Right.
I think
10 billion, he said. Dwarfon wants to buy up to 10 billion.
Yeah, he doesn't have 10 billion, but he will buy up to 10 billion, yes. I think right now they can go to about 3 or 3.5 billion.
Yeah.
And then we will see probably a need for additional capital, or they might swap Luna to buy more Bitcoin. But all that is demand for Bitcoin, which is good for the price of Bitcoin. We're also basically seeing more and more miners not sell their Bitcoin, right? So there's accumulation, because mining normally used to be you mine and you sell into the market. So it was always pressure, sell pressure from the people who were minting new Bitcoin, right? So we're seeing accumulation across the board, Core Scientific, Marathon, Riot, all accumulating. All that is great for Bitcoin. Also inflation. The fact that inflation is rampant convinces more people to lean on Bitcoin or use it as a safety.
On the flip side of inflation, I want to circle back to the Terra Luna move, but on the flip side of inflation, that also means we're going to have a more aggressive Fed. We've had indications from Jerome Powell that he is not going to be deterred by other factors, including the war in Ukraine, and that he is expecting to hike very aggressively. That has led some banks, including Deutsche Bank, to publicly come out and say that they have recession concerns. What would that mean for Bitcoin and crypto? If I get your point that Bitcoin is seen as a hedge against inflation, but at the same time, this high inflation leads to tighter monetary policy, which could potentially push the US into a recession. Yes. How do you see that playing out for Bitcoin and crypto?
It's a great question, because I normally say don't fight the Fed, and for the last several years, don't fight the Fed meant buy stocks, right? But on my AMA, I announced 2 weeks ago that I sold all my stocks, because fighting the Fed now is owning stocks, owning equities, right? So if you don't want to fight the Fed, get out of the way, right? But we're seeing separation of Bitcoin. So from the beginning of the year, the stock market is down, but Bitcoin is actually recovered most of its losses. So we're seeing bifurcation, we're seeing separation, meaning Bitcoin is finally starting to behave as a safety asset. And that's why, again, I'm selling my stocks and I'm buying more Bitcoin.
We were seeing tremendous correlation between Bitcoin, the crypto market, and tech stocks. So you're seeing that correlation end.
I'm saying, I've been interviewed on Kitco now for what, 2 or 3 years? I've been saying for that entire period that the two are correlated, and we should not expect separation for any time soon. But now I'm saying there is separation. It's time for separation. Why? Because the Fed is putting a lot of pressure on the economy by hiking rates and doing, basically, instead of putting liquidity into the market, taking liquidity out of the market. All of that with us shutting down the 9th largest economy in the world, Russia. We basically effectively shut it down. That's a huge recessionary pressure on our economy. So I do expect a recession next year, 2023. I don't think there's anything the Fed can do. We will have a recession next year.
So to be clear, you believe that there will be a recession next year.
Yes.
Therefore, you've gotten out of equities, but you still think that this is good news for Bitcoin and the crypto markets?
Yes. So I think Bitcoin and Ethereum are going to do very well.
In this recessionary environment?
So from now to the recession and during the recession. Yes. Because basically, we have a bridge between TradFi, or traditional finance, and CeFi, and then another bridge between CeFi and DeFi. And those bridges are now being built and being expanded on, right? That's part of what Celsius does. More and more money is going to flow from traditional finance into CeFi and DeFi, because it's going to escape. It's going to escape TradFi, right? There's nowhere to put money in. All the assets are inflated, right? Real estate, bonds, stocks. It doesn't matter. You can't hide anywhere. Even if you want to buy commodities, most commodities are at all-time high, right? So where are you going to park your money? So the best way to do is to move it over to an industry that is not correlated to the US dollar.
And you're seeing that lack of correlation increase. So David loves to ask the price outlook question. So what does that mean if you're seeing all of this money now flowing out of all of these other assets and into cryptos and Bitcoin? I guess let's start off with your Bitcoin price outlook.
So I think we're definitely going to hit all-time highs. All-time highs are not that far from where we are. It's $67,000. And the question we don't know is what happens afterwards. How much resistance we're going to have at 70, 80, 90,000. I think we are going to break $100,000. I know I've said that last year, but we had a few macroeconomic events that are basically kicked the can down the road. But we will see Bitcoin over 100,000 this year.
Thank you for the pass, Michelle. I was going to ask him that. I've got a geopolitical question for her because that's her specialty. Listen, so Ukraine, you talked about Ukraine. Why haven't we seen the price of Bitcoin move up on the invasion of Ukraine? You mentioned that Bitcoin is a safe haven asset. You mentioned that it could do well in a recession, yet when risk assets have fallen on heightened geopolitical tensions, Bitcoin just hasn't done that, at least in the last 3 months. Performed as well as you might have expected. So what could be different next time?
Yeah, so Ukraine, by the way, announced that they are supporting Bitcoin. They passed a special law for that, and they made it effectively legal tender across the country. Many of their banks are closed, or there's no money in the ATMs. So they definitely are looking to use Bitcoin to expand liquidity and services in the country. But as a country by itself, it's not enough to create this tremendous momentum, right? Bitcoin now is over $1 trillion, and it needs to lift the $1 trillion asset. You need a lot of inflows, right? So when Luna is buying Bitcoin or other people are buying Bitcoin, those are movements inside of the crypto community. What you need is fresh capital from TradFi coming in and buying Bitcoin. That's what's going to drive the price higher.
We're going to go back to Ukraine, but when we wrap this up, because that's another big announcement coming from you, but we're going to keep our viewers in suspense until we get that to that part. So let's go back to Terra Luna, because one of the policies there that Do Kwon is trying to implement is to have Bitcoin as a reserve asset, if you will, for the platform. Do you see other protocols and platforms taking that approach? Do you see Bitcoin as a reserve asset, if you will, for other platforms and protocols?
Yeah, so it's a great move by Luna to diversify effectively their treasury, right? So instead of relying just on their own token or their own currency, they're now adding Bitcoin as another reserve asset, which is going to make the people who use UST much more comfortable that there is a stopgap in case prices do go down, right? And that's what they were worried about. So UST is a synthetic stablecoin, right? It's only attached, it's only based on what is in the reserves of Terra Luna. And I think many other people will copy Terra Luna and use the same mechanism again, which is going to drive the price of Bitcoin even higher, right?
Right.
So Bitcoin dominance is going to increase.
Well, we know from Citibank that they're projecting that the metaverse is going to be potentially worth at least $13 trillion by 2030. So that's a big statement from Citibank. Which protocols do you think are poised to benefit from this move?
So if you go back to Kitco interview, I think in 2019, I mentioned to David that I believe that crypto, right, is going to be bigger than the internet. And he asked me, what? Crypto is going to be bigger than the internet? How is that possible? Here is Citibank telling you that Web3, meaning crypto, mostly crypto, is going to be bigger than the internet, right? So we don't know who the winners are, right? I mean, we're early in the game.
But we're asking you to pick some.
I understand. So I definitely think that Bitcoin will stay one of the top winners. I think Ethereum will stay one of the top winners. So those two are safe bets. These are my two largest holdings as well. But I think we don't know yet from the rest of the class which ones are going to be winners, which ones are going to be long-term keepers. Right now, obviously, Solana is doing very well. Terra Luna is doing very well, and so on. There's several contenders, Avalanche, Cardano, but we don't know which of them are going to find the utility, right? Because they need to figure out what is the next utility, what is the next big thing.
Right.
Is it NFTs? Is it gaming? Is it stablecoin, right? And scale that to the next level.
Well, speaking of Ethereum and comments that you've said in the past, I know you mentioned to David in a previous interview that you think that the flipping is imminent.
Yes. So flipping is when the market cap of Ethereum exceeds the market cap of Bitcoin. And I do believe that that's going to happen. It might take another year or two. It's not something that's happening tomorrow. But Ethereum is doing a much better job at creating new utility or expanding its use case than Bitcoin. And because of that, many of the new applications are being launched on Ethereum. Again, gaming, NFTs, and so on. So all of that is great for Ethereum, and it will make Ethereum catch up. Ethereum market cap catch up. It doesn't mean Bitcoin is going down. It just means that Ethereum will run up faster than Bitcoin in the next several years.
How much faster?
Faster to be bigger than Bitcoin.
Well, Alex, you have a live coming up. I've been told I have to wrap you, but before I do that, we need to get this big announcement that you have regarding Ukraine. I know that you were born in Ukraine. I know that, as we discussed, the conflict in Ukraine with Russia's invasion has been significant for cryptocurrencies, over $100 million of cryptocurrency donations made to Ukraine. So share the big news of the Celsius Ukraine affiliation now.
Yeah, so obviously, again, I was born there back when it was part of the USSR, the Russian Empire, and Me and my parents had to leave. We were refuseniks. We were part of the people refusing or fighting with the local regimes. And so seeing what's happening now with the Ukraine, with Russia trying to occupy that country is obviously dear to my heart. And we basically brought the finance minister of the Ukraine to talk to the crypto community here at Bitcoin 2022 and thank them for donating over $150 million for the fight, right, against Russia. And obviously the Ukrainian government used that to help you in humanitarian ways, as well as provide food and shelter and buy all the stuff that's necessary to for the war effort. And again, we're doing another campaign. So we published the address to which people can donate Bitcoin, and we hope, I invite every viewer to also participate in the war efforts. It's as easy as sending a little bit of Bitcoin to this address.
How do you see this war playing out, Alex?
Well, unfortunately, I think Putin is, that's his legacy, right? He's not here for the skirmish. He thought he's just going to roll into town, into Kiev, and install his crony. But the Ukrainian people stood up, Zelensky stood up, and decided to pick a fight. But I think, we poked the bear, we hurt the bear, but the bear is coming back. The bear is coming back for the second round. And we, the Ukrainian people, have to be ready for that, have to be ready to defend our homeland. And so the fight is not over.
Do you see a diplomatic off-ramp, though? Do you think that this resistance has paved the way for a diplomatic off-ramp with Ukraine in a stronger position?
Unfortunately, I don't believe that Putin wants to choose a peace here, right? He needs to show a big win. Right. It's part of his legacy. And I think he's going to do at least one more round to see if he can prevail. All the sanctions are already in, all the bad news for him is already in. So now he just has to decide how much more he's willing to risk to take over the Ukraine, right? That's the prize, the main prize of the Russian empire that he's trying to build.
And if he's cornered like that, that could pave the way for an even more aggressive posturing.
Yes. So we all, obviously, I think everybody wants to have a resolution. But we're not dealing with a rational person on the other side. Speaking
of resolutions, we have to resolve this interview very quickly. Final question from David Lin.
I'm just going to end on that. Chances of a nuclear war then, if Putin is cornered.
Let's end on a happy note there, David, right? Let's end it with something light.
I don't like happy endings, so especially in movies. But yeah, just to comment on that. Chances of a severe escalation, not just nuclear war. I mean, that's one scenario.
Yes, yes. So
just on Michelle's point about Putin being cornered,
we don't know what they're willing to do for a win, right? What the Russian again, this is not a fight between the Ukrainian people and the Russian people, right? This is just a fight between Putin and all the other people. All the people in the world, right? I don't think anyone is on his side, right? Including his own generals, including his own people. So the question is really, how far is he willing to go to kind of set his legacy? And unfortunately, no one has an answer for that. Hopefully, he's not going to go.
Senator Lindsey Graham has an answer. Yes. Because you said that the generals and his own people are against him. Some, like Senator Lindsey Graham, are suggesting that a coup or some kind of way of taking Putin out is the only way that this gets resolved, and perhaps because he's fomented so much dissent from within that...
Well, the good news, you want some good news. Putin did cause the West to unite. It did cause the dollar to strengthen. It did cause many of the people who are worried about the United States or worried about what's happening to actually side with the United States. So there are some good things to it, and I think few more countries are going to join NATO in the next year or two, and all of that is strengthening the United States as the reserve currency and as the world dominant empire.
And as you said, it's been also a positive for crypto.
Yes.
And you're helping to facilitate that. All right, Alex, unfortunately, we are out of time. We will have to continue this again soon, but thank you so much for joining us here on Kitco. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you.
And this is great, live with both of you in the same place. So
Not often we do this, but
Yes.
you are our honored guest today.
Special guests require special circumstances. Thanks for joining us, Alex.
thank you.
Kitco News special coverage of Bitcoin 2022 is brought to you by Coin Payments, crypto payments made easy.